Good afternoon, good morning, or good evening, wherever you are, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this webinar. We're going to talk about commercial air mobility operations, and we're going to share best practices from three countries: United States, Japan, and the Netherlands. My name is Munish Khurana, and I work for Eurocontrol, and I'm a senior manager in business development. And we're very thankful to Amsterdam Drone Week for providing this facility to share our knowledge to everyone around the world. Before I go into the details, just to let you know, we will be video recording this entire session, so we're able to replay it on the website of Amsterdam Drone Week in future. That's for the benefit of everyone. And also a quick reminder to everyone that throughout the session, you have the possibility to submit your questions using the Q&A button that you see at the bottom of your screen. So please do feel free. We want to make it as interactive as possible. So let's kick it off. We have about just under an hour now. First of all, let me just share my views and to set the scene. Today, we see that the air mobility operations across the world are trying to get going, trying to scale up, but the progress is fragmented. In some countries, we see there are initiatives that are leading them to move in and to move fast. Some of them are working well, some are still trying to get up and running. No doubt, in initiatives such as these, there is a need for top-down support from the government down to the practitioners level, but there's also a need from bottom-up. What is clear from everywhere that we see is that we need to see the demand for air mobility, whether it's small drones or it's eVTOLs. We need to see that demand come up. Now, there are certain use cases that have surfaced and are the ones leading the implementation of air mobility operations across the world. A lot of work is ongoing right now to develop the ecosystem or infrastructure, and that infrastructure includes the regulatory norms, the technical and operational infrastructure, the physical to take off and land the drones and eVTOLs, but also extremely importantly, the financial infrastructure, because depending on where you are, the challenges related to obtaining finance are different. And in the initial stages of the industry, I don't think we need to emphasize more the need for financing. So it's pretty clear there. Now, but the speed and the intensity and maturity of development of such infrastructure is different in different parts of the world. Some countries are more proactive than others. What we want to listen to today from our panelists are those areas where things are working well and also those where they're finding challenges. Now, of course, the proof of the success of air mobility operations will be visible once they are commercial and they're scaled up in the skies and you can see them. So without further ado, I'd like to now introduce my panelists with a view to learning from them about the state of readiness of air mobility operations in those three countries, Japan, United States, and the Netherlands. I'm delighted today to welcome the three panelists we have with us. The first one is Junichi Sugihara from PwC Consulting in Japan. Welcome, Junichi, and thank you very much for dialing in. I know it's late in the evening in Japan, but thanks for your commitment. We appreciate it. The second one is Richard Hermans, and Richard is from the province of North Holland, and he's the strategic policy advisor for innovative aviation. Richard, thank you for joining, and thanks for agreeing to share your lessons with our audience. Last but not least is someone a lot of the people in the air mobility operations would already know the face and the name of. That's Sebastian Brabias. Sebastian is a co-president of GUTMA, that's the Global UTM Association, and also the head of Airspace Innovation Europe at DroneUp. Sebastian, welcome. Welcome to the webinar. Thank you, all three of you. Now, the way we're going to operate this is first, I'd like to offer an opportunity to each one of you, somewhere around 5 minutes there or thereabouts, to give us a sense of what's happening in the regions that you belong to. And then we'll open up the floor for question and answers. I'd like to first ask some question and answers myself, and then I'd also like the audience to start submitting their questions, and I will do my best to address as many of those as possible. May I first request Junichi from Japan to perhaps share your slides and to deliver your message about how things are evolving in Japan. And I'm sure our members of the audience here in Europe, United States, South America, Africa, in Southern Asia, and everywhere else, we would love to see what's happening, particularly within the backdrop of the preparation for Osaka Expo, which plans to be held, which you guys plan to hold in April of 2025. So over to you, Junichi.
Thank you, Munish, for your introduction. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, and we can see your slides. Perhaps you want to run them in a mode. Thank you.
Okay. I'm Junichi Sugihara from PwC Consulting Japan. I'm leading UAS and AM related project in public sector division. Today, I'd like to introduce UAS package delivery and UTM implementation in Japan. On behalf of RIAMO project member, RIAMO project is realization of Advanced Air Mobility Project, which is funded by NEDO, New Energy and Industrial Technology Development Organization. So, next page. First, about market needs for US package delivery. I think Japan is kind of a unique situation because the left side, as you can see, we have 416 inhabited islands and 1 million people are living there. And also we have huge mountain and hilly area, which covers 70% of national land and 30 million people are living there. So to keep the transportation nationwide, we need land transport, but as you can see on the graph left side, truck driver shortage is getting bigger and bigger. So we need to have alternative transportation method. For the city area, we also have different character, especially compared to Dallas-Fort Worth, which will be explained from Sebastian later. Both Dallas-Fort Worth and Osaka, which is third largest prefecture in Japan, almost say we both have 8 million people, but the city area is very different. Like Dallas-Fort Worth has huge area, 24,700 square kilometers. This is a red line area. And Osaka has quite compact and dense city area. The city area is 1,905 square kilometers. So in Osaka, almost all the people can access to the shopping center or shopping area by walking distance. So package delivery needs is quite different from other countries, especially compared to United States, I think. In the next page. Therefore, we have cases of package delivery, especially in rural area at this moment. We listed up 3 examples. One is by Toyota Tsusho and Zipline. They are delivering grocery and medical goods, and operation is BV loss, not over people. Currently, they are delivering goods in between remote islands. As you can see on the map, red line is a delivery route of medical goods, and white area is a destination of grocery delivery. The operation is conducted by one-to-many pilot-to-UA ratio. And Japan Airlines also conducted 1-to-3 package delivery. They deliver grocery in rural and mountain area. And next delivery is also conducted 1-to-2 Biblos notable people operation delivering grocery in rural area. So to make these package delivery to more, we have challenges. About US with high level of automation and autonomy are needed. In Japan, type certificate is necessary to fly Biblos over people. So OEM must prove the safety with sufficient data, such as flight records. About operator, the remote pilot needs enough knowledge and skills, and operator organizations are required to perform safe flight management and risk assessment. Assessment of air and ground risk using SORA and implementing measures are required. About infrastructure, it's necessary to implement UTM to enable strategic and tactical deconnection. In order to realize high frequency and high density drone operation, it's necessary to grasp the flight information of one aircraft. Lastly, about society, we need accumulating cases for safety operation and public relations. Personally, I think privacy is a big topic to discuss in the future. Lastly, about UTM, government published 3 steps of UTM implementation. Currently, we are at first step. We already launched DIPS. DIPS means Drone US Information Platform System, and their flight plan overlaps by email or other means. And we are shifting to step 2. In early stage of step 2, certified USP, UTM service providers support flight plan coordinations. So once flight plan overlapped, DIPS will make an alert, and USPs will communicate each other and solve the overlaps. In the middle late stage, additionally, operation monitoring, sharing information among certified USPs, and alert for route deviation will be provided. And at the third step, we will plan to make ATM, UTM, UATM coordination. That's all, the first step. Thank you.
Thank you, Junichi. Thank you for
Manish.
providing a quick overview. Very interesting development there. And I like when you said that the situation is a bit unique, and certainly the question and answers will come back to it. So let me move now to Richard. So perhaps, Junichi, you could stop sharing your slides, and Richard, you could share your slides and give us a perspective from Europe now. So we've heard the Japanese perspective. Over to you, Richard. Whilst you're doing that, may I request members of audience only to use the chat function if you have problems with audio or video, but please use the Q&A function to submit your questions. That way we can monitor which questions to address to the panelists. Over to you, Richard.
I think that we cannot hear you.
Richard, you're on mute. Still mute.
Richard?
Yes, I'm
Perfect.
unmuted now.
You're unmuted. Yes, thank you.
I'm sorry, let's start over. Let me first quickly introduce myself. My name is Richard Hermans. I'm the policy advisor for innovative aviation at the province of Noord-Holland. And I will quickly show you what we are doing with respect to innovative aviation in the province. And first of all, we are a political organization. So we have a new coalition since September 2023. And in that coalition agreement, we have managed to get a piece of for innovative aviation into that coalition agreement. So it is stated there, regional airports in Noord-Holland are relevant for, amongst others, the development of innovative logistical concepts such as cargo transport using drones. So driven by our responsibility for regional airports, we want to investigate the possibilities for innovative aviation to have an impact, a positive impact on different topics that the province is working on, such as energy transition, mobility, and that sort of topics, those sort of topics. And one of the other statements in the coalition agreements is that actually we support companies to be able to transition to a more sustainable and clean processes. So if you are not planning or have an idea of how you are going to become clean and sustainable in the longer term, then we don't see a future for you in the province of Noord-Holland. So it's quite a harsh statement. So if you look at our mobility system, in our mobility system, we have these different types of modalities, and we try to look at aviation as one of those modalities. So if you are need to transport, for instance, a package or a sensor or a number of freight or passengers, we try to look at it from an integrated point of view to see which is the most beneficial solution for that type of transport. So we're actually trying to build the use of drones and the use of innovative air mobility into our mobility system. So we are building a new, clean and smart mobility ecosystem. And for that, for those reasons and those statements in the coalition agreement, we have done a number of actions. So first of all, we have included aviation in our mobility perspective, which is smart, clean, and safe mobility. So we're looking at smart and clean drone operations, but we're also looking at clean regional aviation with electric aircraft and that sort of thing. We're focusing now on drones. So we have set up a cooperation with California, which was already a urban mobility MOU. We have expanded that MOU to include drone operations and urban air mobility. I myself am seconded to the Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management, the program of unmanned aviation, to location in Den Helder, where we have both used in the civil sense and also in military sense, and also a port that is both military and civil use. So those are the sort of actions that we take in order to bring the development of drones, the activities of drones a bit further. And to make sure that all the interests that the province and the national government have in terms of sustainability, in terms of healthy living environments, are taken into account when we are looking at new developments of drones. So that, in short, is what the province is working on.
Excellent. Thank you. A very structured Richard, and driven by policy, which is very interesting because in different parts of, particularly in Europe, I see a trend. There's those that are being driven top down and those being driven bottom up. And I think at the end of the day, we'll probably need both of them to meet to get going. Thank you very much. Now, over to you, Sebastian. Would you like to deliver your message, please?
The pleasure. Thank you. I trust that you see my screen and you can hear me, right?
We can see your screen and we can hear you. Go ahead.
Excellent. I will make a slideshow and we can start. So welcome everybody. Thank you, Munish and the team to have me here. I'm Sebastian Babias, as the co-president of GUTMA and the drone up representative on this session. What I want to talk here is about the Dallas Forward. So this is a really impressive development of UTM services, which literally enable the scalable operations and really satisfy the need of such a service in this area. So already said that Dallas Forward is 24,000 square kilometers, a pretty big area with 8 million population. So the target audience is pretty big, and can really create the significant revenue from the drone services. But what is about this initiative? So US UTM implementation. You might hear as a key site, you might hear Dallas Forward DFW implementation, but official name is US UTM implementation. Operationalize how UTM service supports multiple drone service providers who share the same airspace. So literally, it's response to the FAA Order 8040.6a, which addressed the risk assessment of the operations. And this implementation addressed the UA to UA collision in the BVLOS complex commercial operations, which are happening already today in the DFW Dallas Forward area. The implementation uses clear industry consensus standard, and that's reflect to the ASTM F3548-21, which is the inter-USS interaction to manage and organize flights in this area. So it's shortly saying it's all about making the BVLOS operations more safer and overlap the BVLOS operations from the different vendors, different service providers, drone operators. And who is the member of this initiative? What is the cohort members? So we call it cohort. And we have three kind of members here. We have a USSP and drone operators. So here we have AMTEX, we have Andra, we have Avision, Call Analytics, Drone Up, Flytrex, Wind, Zipline. And we have a standalone drone services who don't have a capability to provide the UTM USS services. And this is the MANA, probably some of you know them. Arlington Police Department, Dallas Police Department, Irving Police Department. So those police departments are the recent development, and they realize that as drone services happening there, they want to be part of this project because they are very heavily using drone services for the police department's operations, and they want to be somehow aware where the flights are happening. And they want to interact with those flights with the same way as others are doing. And obviously, the most important is authority. So that's all blessed by FAA. FAA closely looking at this initiative and trying to assess how these services will impact the upcoming law of Part 108, which is under development and should be shortly released for the comments. How the timeline looks for this. So the initiative was developed already in 2023 as a kind of idea and started to be promoted in Q2, Q1, Q3, 23. Since that time, in the collaboration with GUTMA, there was a data sharing agreement developed, which was signed in March 24. But before that, the consortium cohort members already start sharing the simulation and start using the inter-USS standard to interact on the simulated environment in this area. In May, we already created the operational committees, which leverage the data sharing agreement and set up the bodies which really manage the whole initiative. And right now, this is already in operations and live flights happening with several members, and other members are building up the capabilities to come together and work together. What's really important in this initiative that this is not closed initiative. It is initiative where everybody can join. And as I presented the members, the founding members was the Ford company. So this was Drone Up, Wings, Zipline, and Flytrex. And they came together, but they always keep it open because the whole initiative only worth when the many others can join and really contribute in the same way. So this will be really shared airspace. For everybody who wants to learn some more information or potentially join this initiative, please go to the GitHub, which the address is on the bottom of this slide. What's also important that's the US UT implementation, which has international alignment, and saying that Global Ultimate Association, which I'm representing here, provide the governance agreement template, and we develop it in terms of the task force work. Open source automated test inter-USS platform provides the platform how to implement ASTM standard, which I mentioned before is the base on the interaction here. So this is really interesting setup and really prove that business can drive the development and authority can really assist and bring that to the level that simply service can start be useful and take the benefits. What I want to say at the last thing here is that as a GUTMA, we're planning to have our flagship event, Harmonized Skies 2024, in the Dallas Fort Worth, in the FAA Regional Center in Fort Worth, Texas, on November 13, 15. And I'm really encourage you to scan the QR code and register and come to learn and see how this is developed and how the real operations are happening with this coordination. And up to now, we have already CAAs from the 5 continents, 20 countries representing, and this is impressive footprint from around the world on how the interest about this initiative is. So again, please scan the code and register if you are capable to come to US and watch how the operations are happening there. Thank you, Munich, and I will give the floor to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian. So actually 3 very, very different regions with what appears to be 3 different approaches. I particularly like that. If I look at the way Japan's looked at its terrain and is trying to implement air mobility operations, it's true to say that every region will first look for low-hanging fruits. And Junichi, I really like the way you highlighted where the terrain and the cities in Japan are more congested compared to the American cities, no doubt, that are spread out a lot more. And therefore, it appears that you guys are first kicking off these operations in rural areas or mountainous areas, and also where you need BVLOS flights, but not over people. Presumably, that must be because when you're not flying over people, then the risk of flight is low, and hence the SORA is also slightly easier because the risks are slightly limited. We already have a number of questions, so I'm actually going to dive straight in to address the questions from people before I ask my question. So first, there are a number of questions for Junichi yourself. I think one question or a couple of them are really related to how you are handling the whole public acceptance topic in Japan. What measures are being taken in Japan to engage with people and to listen to them, and whether it's to do with noise or it's to do with privacy or it's to do with their security and safety? Could you give us a sense of how you're managing that, please?
Yeah, Manish, thank you. We have several ways to communicate with society. same as I think other operators. First, central and regional city government makes some announcement for the local citizens to about the package delivery operation of drones, and also collaboratively with media operators make some announcement, and also some success cases of delivery. And they, because of that, such kind of information, local people can understand the merit of drone delivery. And the most strong, how to say, information for the local citizens' understanding is delivery itself. So many of the package delivery operators says once they received package, they are very positive for the package delivery. They don't usually care about noise and privacy because they know the merit of delivery. So that's the most strong method to convince people.
I really like the way you put it. Indeed, we've heard many times, seeing is believing, really. There is no better way of winning hearts and minds of people to adopt drones or to accept them. And that is, when you show them that it's flying and so be it. I know that in the past we have seen how Mana Drone Services in Ireland went through setting up the drone operations during COVID days, and people saw those operations, and initially they were all quite unclear and unsure about them. But once they start seeing them, they start believing them. This question came actually from Robin Brownswell and from Kevin Matura. Thank you both very much. A quick one for you, Junichi, and I'll move on because I think it's a closed question. It's from Philip Bakeman. A question for Junichi. Deliveries, are they done in VLOS or BVLOS?
It's BVLOS.
BVLOS, that's
but not over people.
Not over people. So hope that clarifies, Philip, your question. Now let's move on to other questions. So there's one for Richard. Richard, there's a question from Farzane, who's a researcher in the Netherlands. And what Farzane is talking about is that, that there are all kinds of rumors. I'm sure they are in every country. But amongst citizens itself, when they start discussing about drone operations in urban regions, the first impression is, no, I can't see that happening. Now, in North Holland, where you operate, how are you engaging with the public to understand their needs, and what are the early indications that you have had from them about their acceptance for drone operations? Please.
Well, first of all, the question of using drones for urban regions is a no-go. That is not true. Actually, we in Europe, a number of drone operations in the open category is not limited to urban areas, so you can easily fly with in the open category in urban areas. What we do see right now is that because of the way airspace is set up, that large parts of the cities are within the CTR of a major airport. And of course, in those regions, it is very difficult to allow or to fly with drones when you are interfering with manned traffic. Because the North Holland is a quite densely populated area, that is in large parts of our urban areas, that is the case. So it's very difficult to operate there. However, what we do is within the city of Amsterdam, there is an organization called Amsterdam Drone Lab, which is already trying to do some demonstrations with drone use in urban areas. Where they actually fly a drone for a specific purpose, such as meal delivery. That's one of the things that they have done. And then really asking people that are in the vicinity of that flight how they interpret that flight, how they would see that. And they really try to, how do you say that? Stimulate the fantasy that it's not just about that single flight, but the idea that you will have multiple or a large number of flights of that category at any single moment. And there you will find that in an urban area, some operations such as package delivery and meal delivery, for instance, that was thought about a while ago, is probably not going to be accepted as a regular drone operation. Whereas if you look at medical deliveries, medical services, or high value societally beneficial operations, will probably be more easily be accepted by people living in an urban area. And one of the concerns, most of those people are concerned about privacy first, and noise and visual hindrance second.
Thank you, Richard. Thanks very much. So actually, the situation is not homogeneous. It is different in different areas, no doubt. When you're in the city area, which is arguably in most cities are within the controlled airspace of an airport, it is indeed very difficult to fly there unless you have the right permissions to do so. But in open areas, as you said, Richard, and particularly in the open category, these operations are very much going ahead.
Yeah, and actually the Dutch Ministry of Transport and Water Management is actually thinking about opening up airspace in the CTRs in urban areas below a certain altitude that is related to the height of the buildings in that CTR. So they're even considering opening up airspace also in the CTRs of those large airports.
Excellent news. Let's move on to Sebastian. Sebastian, there's a question from Koen. Thank you for the presentation. The question specifically to you is that the Dallas Quayside appears quite innovative. And various UTM service providers appear to be cooperating to share information and support BVLOS operations in a shared airspace. Could you explain how this compares with the situation in EU or Japan? And also, when you do that, would your solution be compatible with the use-based regulation here in Europe? So if you could share your thoughts, please.
Sure. Absolutely. So thank you for the question. I think this is a really good question to better understand the whole concept. And so the concept started from the industry. The drone service providers, in this case, drone delivery service providers, came together and realized that they are flying over Dallas in the different areas, but the business is where they can overlap the operations. And to overlap operations, they found another problem that FAA started asking, okay, how you mitigate the risk of UA to UA collision? There is now the question how you mitigate the risk of the manned aviation, because the Dallas Forward area is the Mode C Vale, where the all manned aviation is visible. So that could be easily done by the different sensors and integrating those sensors into the mission planning and understanding where the manned aviation is flying. So all this, which we know ADSB kind of systems can support that. But the problem came how UA to UA collision can be mitigated when the different operators are flying with their own UTM services or sort of UTM services. So industry came with the solution, as I mentioned, inter-USS ASTM standard, which represent the way how you can interact based on the UTM service, strategic conflict resolution, between the different service providers, so-called USSs or USSPs. And there was another question, what's the difference between USSPs and standalone drone service providers? So the one who has the capability of USS, or UTM services and drone delivery, start interacting and implementing the inter-USS standards, and in this way, make the whole strategic conflict resolution between UA happen. So this is not the full UTM, it's a piece of UTM which represents the UA to UA strategic conflict resolution. And what is interesting here is that it can be duplicated in any region. So USpace also represents such a service, or needs such a service, where the USS or drone service providers will submit the operational intent to UTM or USpace service provider, and USpace service providers must interact between each other to somehow strategically deconflict. So this service can be easily implemented inside the USpace environment. And to be honest, EuroK already taking this into the consideration, where planning the next standard for exchanging the flight intents. So inter-USS ASTM standard is considered as the one who can be taken to the European market as well. So definitely can be copied here. Japan, I believe, can also be used. It's just a matter how many UTM service providers will exist, because that matter only if many UTM service providers exist. If there's one UTM service provider, there is no such a need, because the UTM service provider can manage this. But the problem is coming when different UTM service providers are available, which represent the really open and cooperative market, which USpace is aiming for. Hopefully that I explained that.
Yes, you did. So that I think in short, I think your final remark was that yes, it should be possible to utilize or use the same mechanisms in Europe and Japan, because what you're trying to do in the United States, or actually doing it now for the last few months, no doubt, is nothing unique. You're actually trying to do a logical, natural way of trying to delink strategically these flights at a certain altitude using a standard. So as long as the same standard is followed, there should, at least in theory and logically, be no problem.
Correct. And with the support from GUTMA data sharing agreement, we also realize how to make the legal framework around that, because the technology is one thing, and the legal framework, how you're sharing the data, how and who is responsible for the certain data exchange, and other aspects must be written down. And it's not about the USpace regulation, it's about the agreements between the different stakeholders. So I think that this is really important step also for Europe and other regions to really consider that as an important step when they thinking about enablement in the USpace or UTM services.
Yeah. Well, this is a very interesting one, and I hope we had more time, because this is a very industry-driven mechanism to move forward and to start scaling of operations and learn from it and improve it, and learn from it and improve it, which is quite interesting. And I think in particularly in Europe, perhaps Junichi can give us a view about Japan, but particularly in Europe, I think the move that we have in Europe is slightly more regulated, one as such. But I think it'd be very interesting to learn from this event in November on how best we can utilize that in various parts of the world. So thank you very much. There is a question back to Junichi. This is from Jose Nieto, and I'll read it out. How does the US, Japan, or in fact it's both to Sebastian and Junichi, how is US and Japan ensuring conflict-free or conflict avoidance with manned aviation in the UTM airspace? Do they restrict manned aviation in UAS UTM airspaces, such as temporal and spatial segregation? Junichi, do you want to go in this first, please?
Yeah, thank you. So, good question. Actually, we under discussion about deconfliction against manned aviation, and one of the possible measure is ADSB like sensors, which Sebastian introduced, which is already used in Dallas Fort Worth. And we also have several methods compared, including Japanese kind of original sensors and communication method. We are comparing cost and difficulty in maintenance aspect. So after the analysis on those kind of aspect, maybe we will select some method to make the confliction against manned aviation real near future. That's the situation. Thank you.
So thank you. And Sebastian, do you want to come in I think you kind of covered it, but maybe you can expand a little bit.
Yes. So again, the initiative is not really focusing on the manned aviation, the confliction, because this was not really requested by FAA. This is the manned aviation, the confliction is in the CONOPS of each drone operator. So they have to prove to the FAA that they can deconflict, and for that, as was mentioned, it's used the ADSB feeds because all the manned aviation flights should be visible because of the mode surveil capabilities in this area. So that's making that much easier. But the whole approach of this US UTM implementation is make like step by step. First step is UA to UA, the confliction, strategic conflict resolution. And it's only focusing on this piece. So the next steps will be how we integrate the weather, how we integrate the manned aviation feeds and share this. Because today it's up to the drone operator to gather all this data.
Thank you. Thank you, Sebastian. So very much an open approach here in the United States, being driven by the industry and being driven by demand. And, you know, it's step-by-step approach. Richard, there are a couple of questions for you. One of which is what you said in your presentation about the role North Holland plays in bringing the communities together, but actually even civil and the military side of things. Could you expand a little bit more on what you mean by bringing civil and military operations together, and how does this synergy work?
Well, to be honest, we are still at the forefront of that civil-military cooperation. But one of the things we have is like I said, in the region of Den Helder, we have a military and civil port and a military and civil airport co-located. What we see there is that a lot of the questions that the military have in terms of drone operations on the North Sea are actually similar to the drone operations we want to exploit on the North Sea in terms of oil and gas and energy on the sea. So the wind parks on the sea that we want to operate and maintain. So we have identified, together with the Ministry of Defense, we have identified a number of topics that we could develop both in the civil and in the military. By identifying those topics and having a location where we can freely or reasonably freely experiment, we have decided to set up I don't know whether you can call it set up yet, but we have identified let's say a drone lab, both focused on both civil and military applications. What is also interesting is because we have this all this infrastructure on the North Sea, there is a security question that is not only needed or needs to be answered by the Ministry of Defense, but also, for instance, by the Coast Guard and other security partners. Those operations are right in the middle between the civil and the military drone operations. So we think we can actually benefit both on the civil side, but also on the Coast Guard and other security partners benefit from having the defense also experiment with numbers of sensors and numbers of applications in that specific region. So we are trying to bring all of these partners together, try to identify the topics that are relevant for the civil side of drone operations on the North Sea. So the maritime, really the maritime drone applications, and then trying to combine them with the programs that the Ministry of Defense is already running. And we can really benefit from those operations because they are all operating in a very harsh environment on the North Sea with salty air, high winds, high waves, very harsh operations. So it's very interesting to see if we can combine a number of those experiments and demonstrations there.
Very, very interesting, and I'll add something from my side that there is an initiative from from European Commission as part of the EU Drone Strategy 2.0 for the civil and military sectors to come together and to develop dual-use technologies for drone operations. And certainly my organization, Eurocontrol, along with the European Commission, EASA, the regulator, and the European Defence Agency, we're working together to create a mechanism whereby the civilian world and the military world can share, where the security allows them to share, test facilities from each side. And also be able to provide services from one sector to another sector, again, when the security limitations allow. This will help the civilian side to gain from the many hours of drone operations that the military side has, which the civilian side doesn't have at the moment, particularly in Europe, and also for the military to benefit from a lot of the new UTM technology research that the civilian side is doing, and to utilize it on the military side. So there is this natural fit that where possible, the two must come together. So thank you for sharing that. That's very good. There's a question for you, Junichi. We only got about 9 minutes left. And that question, I think, has come from a European member of audience, because he's talking about the financing. It's difficult, particularly in Europe, for financing small to medium scale enterprises, because they're not earning much money through selling flights just yet. There's very little revenue. What is the situation like in Japan for operators? Is there enough earning from them to be able to survive and keep going?
Thank you for the question. From the financial perspective, it's not enough at this moment, because operation is very limited. For example, in case of operation is up to 20 deliveries per day at this moment. So considering the cost and revenue, they need to have more larger operation. At this moment, local government and the central government, and also operator itself, invest, sharing their investment. Because for the local government, they have some necessities to keep remote island or remote area package delivery operation for the future. As I already introduced in my presentation, package delivery driver will decrease. So we need to have other major means to deliver goods. So that's the reason government subsidize those kind of operation at this moment.
Thank you. That's very interesting, because that kind of subsidy to support the drone operations is not everywhere around the world, and there are different mechanisms being used across the world. I know that in Europe, member states or countries or state departments are supporting their organizations to set up a centralized information service provision facility. We call it CISP here in Europe, and they are providing them initial funds for the first 3 to 5 years to set these things up, and then to come up with a new business model that becomes more self-sustaining. That's another model that we see. And so I think it's horses for courses at the moment, but it's clear that some sort of state intervention is likely to be needed to get going these operations. And once they are going and we start to see the scaling up, that's when the revenue can be used to put back into it. One more question, I think it's again for Richard. It's come from the Netherlands, again, Fazane. I think it's a follow-on question from the previous one, is how can we connect to an organization in the Netherlands that can support our research ideas on the application of drones for civilian applications in the Netherlands and EU, such as for air quality, city energy transition. And I think in this case, Fazane is not talking about the financial support, although it is, of course, welcome, but more about handling tests and field work. So the question really is, how to connect to organizations that can support these research ideas. Is there anything you can do or your organization can do, Richard, to help Farzaneh and other researchers?
Yeah, let's get in touch, because that is basically exactly what we're here for, to bring that ecosystem together. And one of the things I didn't mention yet, but we from the province, we really support those type of operations that are really a benefit to any of our provincial goals, such as the energy transition, improvement of the living environment of people. So those type of experiments that you are mentioning are an excellent fit. So let's get in touch, and we have 2 locations where we can experiment in North Holland. That is in the region of Amsterdam and the region of Den Helder. So we can have we could see if we can find a location to do those experiments in those regions. Yeah.
Excellent. And there's one more, and then I will really wrap up. A quick one as for Sebastian. Sebastian, based on your previous answer, one of the members of the audience is asking that, does that mean that today you're looking at basically strategic deconfliction and not tactical deconfliction just yet in the first phase? Is that correct?
Correct. We're solving the first problem, and next problem's solution will come once the scale will really be there.
No, that
the
makes sense.
And the need.
That makes sense. That does make sense. Junichi, very quickly, is it possible for you to give us a sense of what's the role of PwC in the work that's taking place in Japan? Where does PwC fit into this? Junichi. Junichi, can you hear me? What is the role of What is the role of PwC in all this, please?
So, especially in DMO project member, as a member, we are supporting Japanese government and industry to get situation in other countries like United States and Europe. So we collect regulation and international standard information, and I share the information to government and the industries. And also, as a member of study group for the package delivery requirement consideration, we are providing some support for the study group members under GCAP.
Excellent.
That are the things we are doing currently.
Excellent. Thank you. It's great to see cooperation from multiple members of the public and private sector. So, ladies and gentlemen, I hope there was more time we could discuss with the 3 gentlemen a lot more, but I'm afraid we've come to that stage where I need to do a quick wrap up. Today, what we've learned from our colleagues from Japan, Europe, as well as United States, is that there are different approaches. Some of the best practices they've shared are suited to the needs of particular regions, but some of these best practices are also transferable between the regions, as Sebastian highlighted as well. So although the progress across the world may be fragmented, what is positive today is that progress is taking place. And I like the idea that Junichi identified earlier on, is that seeing is believing, really, and that maybe the best way to convince people is to show them the drone flights. And also when Richard highlighted that they're trying to do in North Holland this whole concept of drone laboratories, which is a little bit like a living laboratory where you invite members of the public or members from the general cities to come and see what drones can do and can't do. And again, ask questions and get to know, and then alleviate their fears about safety, security, privacy. And the best thing to do is, no doubt, dialogue itself. Also, particularly like the approach being taken in Dallas-Fort Worth, which is about, let's try and take a step-by-step approach. Let's do the first thing right, learn from it, and then take the next challenge, and so on and so forth. I think this will further help showing members of the audience, people in the cities, about drones flying in the air and helping to achieve their buy-in, seek their buy-in as such, no doubt. And I think in terms of moving forward, it is clear from what members were saying that there are commercial operations that will come up, but in different parts of the world, it's possible that they will first target high-value public sector services to win the hearts and minds of the people. We've come to that time where we must thank my panelists. Thank you all very much for your time, for sharing your best practices and lessons learned. I wish you a wonderful day, and many thanks to the members of the audience who asked all the questions and being very patient. I hope you found this webinar very useful. There will be more in future, so please look out for it. I wish you all a very pleasant rest of the day. Thank you all very much.